أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم Alhamdulillah. Surah Anbya is a long surah, and so I was reading the structure of that particular surah because the Mufassirun sometimes try to categorize how the surahs are organized, and it's completely their opinions, and it makes sense how they organize that, why that section came after that section. They try to relate, and beautiful interpretation. That's why sometimes it's really, in terms of knowledge, it's an amazing beauty that how people around the globe in different times, they try to explain how they are arranged. Now in this surah, the starting of the surah is basically the main objective of hereafter. So not started with the prophets. So it started with the ultimate objective of hereafter. That's why the prophet was sent, and what type of ridicule they faced, it was actually arranged, presented. Now, at the beginning, in verse 30, and at the end, so we just pick two verses, which is actually not directly related to the prophets, but it is related to the start of the universe and the end of the universe. Okay, so inshallah, we will see that. So regarding the start, if we look at the verse 30, do the disbelievers not realize that the heavens and earth were once one mass, or in a single point? Then we split them apart. So even the word, like the word is actually ratqa, the interpretation is like it was just in a single point, just together. So there is no metaphor, basically. It's literal meaning that it's together. So everything was together, and Allah Rabbul Alamin made split them apart. And it was this surah, definitely, I mean, Quran was revealed 1450 years ago, long ago. So, and the Hubble telescope in this century, they actually discovered that particular scientific evidence that how the universe was created, and they found that it is basically the Big Bang theory. Everything was in a single point and it split, and it is now widely popular. Most of the scientists know. So just for a quick note, just to make it, I think on the sister side, television can be turned on. I'm just playing that particular video.
The beginning of everything, the Big Bang. The idea that the universe was suddenly born and is not infinite. Up to the middle of the 20th century, most scientists thought of the universe as infinite and ageless. Until Einstein's theory of relativity gave us a better understanding of gravity, and Edwin Hubble discovered that galaxies are moving apart from one another in a way that fits previous predictions. In 1964, by accident, cosmic background radiation was discovered, a relic of the early universe, which together with other observational evidence made the Big Bang the accepted theory in science. Since then, improved technology like the Hubble telescope has given us a pretty good picture of the Big Bang and the structure of the cosmos. Recent observations even seem to suggest that the expansion of the universe is accelerating. But how did this Big Bang work? How can something come from nothing? Let's explore what we know. We can ignore the beginning part for now. First of all, the Big Bang was not an explosion. It was all space, stretching everywhere, all at once. The universe started very, very, very small and quickly expanded to the size of a football. The universe didn't expand into anything. Space was just expanding into itself. The universe cannot expand into anything because the universe has no borders. There is, by definition, no outside the universe. The universe is all there is. In this hot, dense environment, energy manifested itself in particles that existed only for the tiniest glimpses of time. From gluons, pairs of quarks were created, which destroyed one another, perhaps after giving off more gluons. These found other short-lived quarks to interact with, forming new quark pairs and gluons again. Matter and energy were not just theoretically equivalent, it was so hot they were practically the same stuff. Somewhere around this time, matter won over antimatter. Today, we're left with almost all matter and nearly no antimatter at all. Somehow, 1,000,000,001 matter particles were formed for every 1,000,000,000 particles of antimatter. Instead of one massive ultimate force in the universe, there were now several refined versions of it acting under different rules. By now, the universe has stretched to 1,000,000,000 kilometers in diameter, which leads to a decrease in temperature. The cycle of quarks being born and converted back to energy suddenly stops. From now on, we work with what we have. Quarks begin forming new particles, hadrons, like protons and neutrons. There are many, many combinations of quarks that can form all sorts of hadrons, but only very few are reasonably stable for any length of time. Please take a moment to appreciate that by now, only 1 second has passed since the beginning of everything. The universe, which has grown to 100 billion kilometers, is now cold enough to allow most of the neutrons to decay into protons and form the first atom, hydrogen. Imagine the universe at this point as an extremely hot soup, 10 billion degrees Celsius, filled with countless particles and energy. Over the next few minutes, things cooled and settled down very fast. Atoms formed out of hadrons and electrons, making for a stable and electrically neutral environment. Some call this period the Dark Age because there were no stars and the hydrogen gas didn't allow visible light to move around. But what's the meaning of visible light anyway, when there's nothing alive yet that could have eyes? When the hydrogen gas clumped together after millions of years and gravity put it under great pressure, stars and galaxies began to form. Their radiation dissolved the stable hydrogen gas into a plasma that still permeates the universe today and allows visible light to pass. Finally, there was light. Okay, but what about the part we didn't talk about? What happened right at the beginning? This part can be defined as the Big Bang. We don't know at all what happened here. At this point, our tools break down. Natural laws stop making sense. Time itself becomes wibbly-wobbly. To understand what happened here, we need a theory that unifies Einstein's relativity and quantum mechanics, something countless scientists are working on right now. But this leaves us with lots of unanswered questions. Were there universes before our own? Is this the first and only universe? What started the Big Bang? Or did it just occur naturally based on laws we don't understand yet? We don't know, and maybe we never will. But what we do know is that the universe as we know it started here and gave birth to particles, galaxies, stars, the Earth, and you. Since we ourselves are made of dead stars, we are not separate from the universe. We are part of it. You could even say that we are the universe's way of experiencing itself. So let's keep on experiencing it until there are no more questions to ask.
Alhamdulillah. So this is a beauty, beauty of Quran. The Quran is not a book of science, it's a book of sign. So some sign is there that actually gives the clue and how true it is that it was mentioned 1400 years ago and it's just discovered. Now regarding another verse, this is interesting, this verse, which is 140, the verse 140. If I read that, on that day, this is interesting verse. On that day, we will roll up the heavens like a scroll of writings. Like roll up, like everything is contracted, right? Just as we produced the first creation. So I think in the previous video, there was a previous what happened, some indication was there. We'll see that at this point. So shall we reproduce it? So we shall reproduce it. that is a promise binding on us. We truly uphold our promises. So everything will be contracted. Now, if we look at the thing, the Big Bang, right now a theory. Theory means it is proven. Now, almost theoretically, but kind of almost, because there's no, but hypothesis is lesser value. Like it's not close to the theory. So regarding the end, there are actually 3 hypotheses at present. No theory has been given. And this was one of the video. This is interesting. Again, 5 minutes roughly. So this theory is about the end, taken from the TED. So it's a bit of good.
We know about our universe's past. The Big Bang Theory predicts that all matter, time, and space began in an incredibly tiny, compact state about 14 billion years ago. And we know about the present. Scientists' observations of the movement of galaxies tell us that the universe is expanding at an accelerated rate. But what about the future? Do we know how our universe is going to end? Cosmologists have 3 possible answers for this question, called the Big Freeze, the Big Rip, and the Big Crunch. To understand these 3 scenarios, imagine 2 objects representing galaxies. A short, tight rubber band is holding them together. That's the attractive force of gravity. Meanwhile, 2 hooks are pulling them apart. That's the repulsive force expanding the universe. Copy the system over and over again, and you have something approximating the real universe. The outcome of the battle between these 2 opposing forces determines how the end of the universe will play out. The Big Freeze scenario is what happens if the force pulling the objects apart is just strong enough to stretch the rubber band until it loses its elasticity. The expansion wouldn't be able to accelerate anymore, but the universe would keep getting bigger. Clusters of galaxies would separate. The objects within the galaxies, suns, planets, and solar systems, would move away from each other until galaxies dissolved into lonely objects floating separately in the vast space. The light they emit would be redshifted to long wavelengths with very low, faint energies, and the gas emanating from them would be too thin to create new stars. The universe would become darker and colder, approaching a frozen state also known as the Big Chill, or the heat death of the universe. But what if the repulsive force is so strong that it stretches the rubber band past its elastic limit and actually tears it? If the expansion of the universe continues to accelerate, it will eventually overcome not only the gravitational force, tearing apart galaxies and solar systems, but also the electromagnetic, weak and strong nuclear forces, which hold atoms and nuclei together. As a result, the matter that makes up stars breaks into tiny pieces. Even atoms and subatomic particles will be destroyed. That's the Big Rip. What about the third scenario, where the rubber band wins out? That corresponds to a possible future in which the force of gravity brings the universe's expansion to a halt and then reverses it. Galaxies would start rushing towards each other, and as they clumped together, their gravitational pull would get even stronger. Stars, too, would hurtle together and collide. Temperatures would rise as space would get tighter and tighter. The size of the universe would plummet until everything compressed into such a small space that even atoms and subatomic particles would have to crunch together. The result would be an incredibly dense, hot, compact universe. A lot like the state that preceded the Big Bang. This is the Big Crunch. Could this tiny point of matter explode in another Big Bang? Could the universe expand and contract over and over again, repeating its entire history? The theory describing such a universe is known as the Big Bounce. In fact, there's no way to tell how many bounces could have already happened, or how many might happen in the future. Each bounce would wipe away any record of the universe's previous history. Which one of these scenarios will be the real one? The answer depends on the exact shape of the universe, the amount of dark energy it holds, and changes in its expansion rate. As of now, Our observation suggests that we're headed for a big freeze. But the good news is that we've probably got about 10 to the 100th power years before the chill sets in. So don't start stocking up on mittens just yet. Anxious.
Okay, Alhamdulillah. So one of the things is that it's a hypothesis, but the thing is, I mean, to me that the big crunch is indicated, but the point is all the three scientific evidence shows that universe will be destroyed. Not a single hypothesis is saying that it will be preserved. All three shows now, and all this theory are not considering any intervention by Allah or any superpower. So any intervention happens, then it will be taken over. So even without any intervention by anyone, the universe will be destroyed by any of the three ways. So far, the hypothesis says so, and this verse is actually, this is interesting that now regarding Stephen Hawking, when I was reading that, then actually it clicked. Is that he wrote in his the universe that first book in 1995 that if the big crunch happens, which means in the universe there are 90% dark matters. So whatever we see is basically 10%. So 90% is unknown. Otherwise, it cannot get the extreme gravitational force to hold together everything, because everything will come close. So it needs a dark matter. Second point is that, what was that? I think, yeah, everything will be destroyed and it will come close, and we see the black hole. So the black hole is basically the crux of that big crunch, that everything will come close. And in black hole, it's possible. Everything will come close, and Allah knows the best. But so this is the sign from the book of Allah, Rabbul Alameen. So, and in Alhamdulillah, I just showed it. I just recorded it. Inshallah, it might be useful for our generations, inshallah, to know. And they will actually probably will discover more in future. Actually, more things will be discovered. And these two verses are actually, this scientific evidence is this century. Before that, there was no idea actually. I mean, it's scientifically proven, so it can be claimed easily to anyone. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر إنه على كل شيء قدير.